So Anthony and I ran some. However, this is the most detailed story presentation we've ever done. Like, if you think about the presentation for T1, where we kind of talk about the quarantine zone and fight some cannibals, at some point Joel will get incapacitated. This has everything figured out, even though it might change. Every character is accounted for, every cinematic is accounted for in this presentation, which means it's... Oh, this is about an hour and a half to 2 hours, so hopefully you got your pee break. Okay. So we open on 15-year-old Ellie. This is a few weeks after the events of the first game. Something needed to go after these people. Ellie's trying to ask him what happened, where's Joel, and he doesn't make any sense to her, and she starts to go downstairs. Tommy grabs her hand and tries to stop her, but he's too weak. She rips her arm away, and she heads down. And with each step, her heart races faster and faster as she sees this trail of blood. She opens the door, revealing Joel's mutilated body. And then shock just sets in, and she screams and tries to grab his body, and Dina comes and rips her away, and on that cacophony of sounds, silence. Oh, we're just getting started. I've been working on this game since we finished... Well, really been thinking about it since we finished The Last of Us.
So many people were like, Last of Us 1 is so perfect. It should never have a sequel. They shouldn't make a sequel.
They're like, oh, it wrapped up super great. But I think actually, if you look at the ending...
Swear to me that everything that you said about the Fireflies is true.
Ellie is accepting a lie.
I swear.
Okay.
She has a very good bullshit detector. She knows something doesn't feel right, but I think is too scared at that point to ask.
How long can you really live with accepting a lie like that?
The Last of...
Yeah, once we're done with this whole thing, I'm gonna teach you how to play guitar. Yeah, I reckon you'd really like that. What do you say, huh?
Joel, he's gonna teach Ellie to play guitar. That always felt like that's just this like unanswered promise that like was kind of lingering at the end of the first game. We did this thing called One Night Live, where we had the actors come on stage and reenact certain scenes.
Say we get you to the Fireflies. What happens next?
Marlene, she said that they have their own little quarantine zone and that doctors are still trying to find a cure.
I wrote this new scene that takes place after the ending of The Last of Us, but it was only shown to people in the audience. Like, we cut off the stream right before we showed them the scene.
If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself. Try and sometimes you'll succeed to make this man of me. Our future days of you and me. She's yours.
No, I don't know the first thing about this.
Hey, I promised you I'd teach you how to play.
That scene ends with Ellie holding the guitar and playing one note. And that image was so strong in my mind that I'm sure that kind of trickled into this idea of this trailer. So I started working on some concept art, kept fleshing out the story. And as it felt like it was kind of gaining momentum, Uncharted 4 needed all hands on deck.
Definitely shows up darker.
So I said, okay, before I come on like in full force on Uncharted 4, I just want to capture this trailer.
inside the still waters and they restore my soul, but I can't walk on the path of the right, 'cause I'm wrong.
During the entire production of Uncharted 4, that's all I could think about. I had a lot of investment in Uncharted 4, but the day we were done with Uncharted 4, went right back to that trailer to wrap it up. Anything for this shot that's still happening?
Not in animation.
Of the shadow of death.
This one feels kind of strong to me. Drawing a lot of attention. Can we tone that down?
Yep.
Actually, my biggest fear with this announcement is that it leaks early. More than anything, I have nightmares about this trailer leaking early before we get to PSX. If we're gonna surprise people, PSX, the PlayStation Experience, we're revealing the Uncharted single-player content at the opening of the show.
You're late. I thought you were professional.
Oh, you should relax. You'll live longer.
No one's gonna expect a second Naughty Dog title to be revealed in the same press conference.
Please welcome to the stage, Sean Layden.
There's one more special unveil we have for you tonight. Please enjoy it.
When we first revealed The Last of Us, the Naughty Dog logo came up and the crowd erupted, and it was such a high that that's almost been like chasing the dragon, like wanting to recapture that feeling.
Oh my God. Why does this look like The Last of Us, dude?
Playing it at this surprising moment, I'm hopeful it will have a similar feel.
What are you doing, kiddo?
People outside the studio have such an attachment to the first game, and I've definitely seen fears about not wanting to make a sequel because somehow if it's bad, it will tarnish your feeling about the first game.
I'm gonna find. And I'm gonna kill. Every last one of them.
We're doubling down on those fears and not calling it The Last of Us some subtitle. It's The Last of Us Part 2 to say it's all one story.
이 새끼가 근데 말이 안 되는 게 파트 1에 대한 감성을 끄집어내서 이거를 해놓고 아니라는 식으로 얘기를 해. 물론 이 편도 이해는 가는데 아무튼 뭐 닐 드럭만의 궤변을 들어보려고 보고 있습니다.
The concept for the sequel had to feel compelling enough, have enough weight that felt like, okay, this is an experience worth creating, worth spending the next 3 years on. I became really intrigued with the idea of the cycle of violence and how like certain events would trigger acts of violence that then would beget more acts of violence.
It's almost never satisfying. It never brings the person you love back. And despite you thinking it's going to bring some closure, it doesn't.
We just need more empathy. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could create an experience that lets you safely explore those feelings? With that theme, all of a sudden everything fell into place and this outline emerged. The whole catalyst for what starts the second game is Joel killing the doctor.
No!
That feeds right back in that idea of that cycle of violence. Now it sets up this whole kind of sequence of events. We're going to start the game where you're playing a new character. That sequence ends with this character killing Joel. And we really have to paint her as this monster. Then when you play the next chunk of the game and you're Ellie and you're going to pursue justice, quote unquote, and you're going to go kill this entire crew, we're going to go back in time and show you that same sequence of events, this character that you saw as a monster, to now get you to see things from her perspective. And how this crew is a bunch of people trying to survive in this world. And they have their reasons for pursuing and finding Joel and killing him. And the story was becoming very epic and ambitious. And I had a few parts that I was kind of stuck on. And I felt like to kind of shake things up, I wanted to bring in another writer.
I thought it was a very thoughtful story about violence and obsession. He had Abby, sort of like this girl who was the daughter of the doctor. And that Ellie would go on this vengeance quest. And when he was like, and then Ellie actually kills Abby, I was like, what? You're gonna... Yeah, let's fucking do it.
Not only is she contributing in a lot of ways, I feel like she's challenging what this story can be. She's wanted to add more romantic intimacy between the characters. Those are areas that I've been, I don't know, more uncomfortable writing that stuff. After the first day, she was telling me that she went home and told her husband that I think I just got Ellie's girlfriend pregnant, because that was her big idea the first day, and that had this trickle-on effect and actually added a lot to the story.
Ellie is this very relatable character. I thought she was a perfect vehicle to challenge this notion that violence doesn't have a cost, because it does have a cost in reality. It's going to ruin this girl. You know, people love Joel and Ellie, and we are about to kill one and make the other one a villain.
I was very nervous telling Troy we're going to kill off Joel. In the first game, he was advocating that Joel should die.
When I read the ending to part 1, I was like, you're going to piss a lot of people off.
Let me go.
Marlene is the closest thing to a parent that Ellie has had outside of Joel.
You just come after her.
A lot of people got hurt, and Marlene would be one of those people.
Joel has crossed these moral lines, and therefore he deserves to die, and he thought it might be a more dramatic ending. And I was like, no, you're crazy. But then in the second game, that's why I was thought oh, he would take it pretty easily.
He goes, so Joel dies, and he's like, and so this happens, and then and I literally had to stop. I was like, can you give me just a second? Because it literally was as if someone was telling me about how my friend had just died.
I think he kind of took it hard. It was like the character meant so much to him.
The stick, and that informs the rest of the story.
This way, come on!
You okay?
Yeah.
We get you through interactivity to really connect and empathize with this character.
Y'all act like you heard of us or something.
And then make you feel like I've led Joel to a trap.
When we started out making Last of Us Part 2, and it was purely melee focused, it was all hand-to-hand combat.
It wasn't just the melee combat, we were also looking at sort of layout structure. Bloodborne had a very sort of an open space that sort of kept getting bigger and bigger as you explored. I really like that feeling that you get of mastery over the world. it starts to become kind of almost a character in the game itself. And so that was also something we were looking at.
그러니까 근접 전투를 여기 블러드본에서 영감을 받았다고 그렇게 만들었대요.
The open world thing didn't work with the story that we were trying to tell and stuff.
So in pre-production, we spent a lot of time just doing setups. Self-contained sort of units that tried to expound on a single sort of idea. Trying to start out with sort of simple shapes and building up to more complex shapes. And starting out with one or two mechanics and building up to those mechanics.
Hey! Even our experiments, we try to add like as much context as we can. Like we establish a goal that you're going to be going for. We establish beats so that there's like an emotional journey, the stakes are raised. Figuring out some traversal stuff, a lot of climbing and balance beams and seeing how far we can sort of push in that direction without it getting over the top like Uncharted.
More sort of verticality, more use of grass and stealth.
My name is Arnaldo Lisea.
And what do you do here?
I do design.
How long have you been doing that?
A day. I got an opportunity to work in QA, and that was a great learning experience. I shipped The Last of Us and Uncharted 4.
The thing I'm proudest of is the people who came in to a quality assurance job as a contractor, which is entry-level work, and used that job to get to where they ultimately wanted to be.
When I interviewed for the QA position, I specifically said that my goal was to be a designer.
He had formed this relationship with design where they knew they could rely on him, spending his free time designing a demo, and at the same time, him going to them and not being like, here's 50 bugs you need to fix. He went to them and was like, what do you need? How do I help you? What kind of bugs do you need? And for their part, they embraced him and were like, why don't we show you how to lay out nav mesh?
I am anxious to prove myself. There is no babying when you start. It just hits the ground running. If I don't cut it, I go back to QA or find something else. We're trying to figure out at the moment how we handle big spaces, bigger than the first game.
The enemies are too spread out to be really considered like one single small encounter. And seeing what behaviors we need to start developing for them to make it look good.
The opening of Seattle, that whole section was pretty slow and quite linear in the level design.
Let's assume that there's guys in this building, someone's starting to shoot at me from the second floor. So, okay, if I'm on the horse and I'm getting shot at, I can't take cover with the horse, so probably first thing I'm going to do is jump off. And that's slow and clumsy, and maybe we can make that faster. It's like, but once I jump off, I'm going to want to take cover behind something. It's like, okay, I'm taking cover. Now what the fuck do I do with this horse? I assume the enemies are going to shoot at it. If they don't, that's kind of weird. Does Dina ride off with the horse to help it stay safe? Well, that sucks, because I'm trying to build a relationship with Dina, and if my partner leaves me, that makes me like her less. I'm like, okay, so Dina has to get off the horse and take cover with me and help me engage with the enemies. Okay, but the horse is still there, so what happens with this horse? Does it ride off on its own in order to like protect itself and then come back after? That feels too intelligent for a horse. That seems a little funny. As soon as there's range combat, the horse kind of makes it fall apart. What if we did this whole sequence on foot? How do I approach this building? Imagine this is more dense with cars and ferns and interesting ways for me to close this distance. Maybe when I get close enough, two militia guys come out. I have this little firefight with this front before I could rush forward and go into this building, climb up, and take out the sharpshooter that was harassing me. Really simple, small fight. Now there's tension. Guys can come from anywhere, like from this rooftop, from these windows.
And that really inspired us to take some pretty drastic changes as far as the flow, inserting more combat, opening up the layout to give the player more options as far as they explore the city.
You can imagine this as being kind of the hub with it poking into streets, and I could go into the streets and explore and find those locations, what we're kind of calling dungeons. So that's the plan. Some of these changes are big, but it got us excited. This feels like a true evolution of T1 as far as going more systemic and giving you options.
If there's concern, it's about scale, it's about scope, it's about can we actually build this thing?
The scope is always bigger than the last game. It always has been. It always will be, probably. But this scope on this game is something pretty extraordinary.
Everyone seems to agree that the thing we're building is going to be cool. Once it's done, it's just that it's such a big game.
Our games have become more and more ambitious, and the studio has gotten a lot bigger.
When I started here, we were 40 people. Now we're over 300. You can't handle that many people with a flat hierarchy. As we grew, we've had to introduce new titles just to control management, control communication, make sure things don't fall through the cracks.
We have no producers at Naughty Dog.
There's so many talented people here that you can rely on and lean on. It makes the game better. And that's really kind of the secret sauce of Naughty Dog, is how collaborative it is.
You find the right people who really want to do the best they can possibly do, and then you kind of give them the resources to try. You're getting what you asked for as a creative person, right? You're kind of getting the freedom to go as far as you can go, but sometimes I think we need to be saved from ourselves a little bit.
With The Last of Us 2, there's a real sense of opportunity. This is going to be a much cleaner production than we've done in the past. We're going to get it right this time.
This is the first project that has had the proper pre-production period, where we have locked down, for the most part, the story beginning, middle, and end before we started production. That hasn't happened. I don't know if that has ever happened, now that I think about it.
It's a very, very messy process, which is, again, why it's a lot of times really difficult to schedule. I think right now we are planning on springtime of 2018. So when springtime of 2018 comes around, The Last of Us 2 isn't in stores, you can look back at this and say, well, I guess their plan wasn't exactly set in stone.
Historically, we've done very poorly at being efficient without the pressure of an external deadline.
Every time we have some showing of our games, if it's going to be seen publicly, it's got to be one of the best looking playing things in the industry. For example, the first trailer was coming online, and that forced us to define the look of our game, define the location of where the game takes place, define Ellie's look and her age and her hair and her outfit. We're forced to make those choices. We can't just keep iterating because there's a deadline.
We want to try and schedule the game using these milestones as soon as possible.
Which means we got to keep the marketing rolling, which means next E3, 6 months away, we need to look at a gameplay demo.
E3, it's always been the biggest and most extravagant showing of the game industry. There's something special about the energy of E3.
We need to figure out what the gameplay is, because right now it's just we've got a bunch of like cool prototypes and stuff like that, so it's scary. But we work well under pressure.
We're hoping to be really aggressive and show at E3 2017 just to really kick the project into gear as fast as humanly possible.
We want to break it up into a roughly 2-minute cinematic, a flashback sequence that will set kind of emotional context for what will then go into a 5-minute gameplay sequence. We want to do this festival within Jackson. Like there'll be like a live band, and we're just seeing people lively having fun.
And for the crowd, are you thinking 30 plus people?
Frank says we could do a 30 variation. I think we can make that work with 30.
Yeah.
Dina pulls Ellie onto the dance floor. Ellie's dancing with her, is making all these guys jealous, and then Dina says, "You want to make them really jealous?" And she leans over and kisses her. And on that, we do a hard cut to Ellie in the middle of the woods,
So the idea is we shouldn't see any buildings, just woods, water, ankle-deep water rushing underneath her.
What about rain? Are we still doing rain?
I haven't discussed it with the other guys, but
that demo that we show externally for the very first time is setting the bar for the rest of development. But the problem is we're also working on Uncharted 4 Lost Legacy.
So E3 is June 13th, which means probably we want to be done, what, like 2 weeks before that, which is 4.5 months from now.
With Lost Legacy shipping at around the same time of E3, there are shared resources between the two projects.
Especially sound and particle effects, so they were all on Uncharted.
When it comes to the polish phase, both we're polishing this and that and SPDLC at the same time. I don't know if there's any specific item that needs to be worked on, but I think there's going to be programmer time doing both those things. And
there are going to be times when it's like this needs polishing in E3 and this needs polishing in SPDLC, and like we're going to have to compromise at times maybe.
We kind of just didn't have it at the forefront of our minds that, yeah, they're freaking shipping a video game. It's literally the hardest part of making the game is shipping it. And we were trying to ship a demo, the second hardest thing you can do, at the same time, and sharing a lot of their resources.
So one thing would be helpful is to find out what are the items that you feel like you're most worried about. Like, let's say rain. We could do this thing without rain. So if that helps you a ton, we can make the decision not to remove rain.
It would definitely help.
How about wet hair? Well, if she's going to be swimming, then can't really get around that, right? How about no swimming?
Puts on a cap.
If her hair.
I got like a really clear energy of the meeting, which was how do we shrink it? It was such an impossible task. You can't help but start feeling some doubt, some anxiety about the leadership, not understanding the logic of it. I think like anybody else here, I was definitely ready to roll up my sleeves and figure it out.
Alright guys, we're going to try to keep this pretty short. I guess. So after yesterday's meeting, there were a lot of side conversations, and there was sort of a sentiment about how much work there was to get not only this demo done to ship the Lost Legacy, and it matched up with feelings that we were having. So we started discussing the responsibility of actually attempting this, and started to feel that it was a little bit irresponsible. That if we were to try to meet both these deadlines, we could probably do it, but we would end up doing a lesser job on both projects, both deadlines, than we would if we were doing them individually. And feels like they're both important enough to give them the due attention. So the conclusion that definitely is there is that the demo that was discussed yesterday will not be presented at E3. Yeah.
Does it mean that our main point should be just focusing on more shipping before?
The Lost Legacy?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, we should still try to. We don't, like I said, just want to just completely halt work on this, and all hands on deck on Lost Legacy.
The idea is still to finish the demo, just to give us a buffer, so that these two deadlines aren't overlapping. Okay. It's just now we have more time to work on this demo properly without the pressure.
Once that meeting happened, it was just like, right, of course. I'm not in the Twilight Zone. It makes sense not to do this. It felt really nice seeing the leadership kind of having the team's back and seeing the logic of the situation in front of them.
That's it.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, so are you pissed off?
Am I pissed off? No. What am I? I guess in one sense it's relieved, because there was concern of whether we could hit the quality that we know we need to hit for both Lost Legacies and for what was going to be our E3 demo. And then on the other hand, it's kind of disappointed, because I was excited to get this demo done and get it out there and get the reaction, but now it's going to have to happen at some other point.
What we've decided to do is deliver the demo at around the same time, but that's going to be purely internal, and the demo won't be 100% shippable gameplay and design and animation are going to be locked in June. Then like we back off, we finish Lost Legacy, and then resources free up to finish the particle effects, the lighting, and the sound. And then we ship just the glossiest, best looking demo you've ever seen. We burn that to a disc at the beginning of January, and then we don't touch it again. And nobody sees it until E3. It's going to be really interesting to see if we can really, really commit to being done, 5 months, 6 months in advance of E3, and not be tempted to say like, it could be a little better, let's go back. And we really just need to have the discipline not to do that.
But that then left us as like, okay, what's our next marketing beat? What are we going to show next from this game?
So now we have a new plan where we're going to release a cinematic around PSX time. I think we're going to do it at the Paris Game Show.
This seemed like a pretty intriguing scene to introduce Abby. That whole scene is going to be our next marketing beat. And then we're not going to say much about it, about how this fits into the game, where it fits into the game. Abby evolved over time, and if you look at the concept art, like the character looked very different than where we've ended up. And I don't remember at what point we decided to go with someone like really kind of muscular and broad, but I remember once the idea came up, it felt very fresh.
Once we sort of nailed down the body of Abby, we played around with different ideas of how we wanted to accentuate her arms or not.
And there's something interesting in Abby feeling a lot like Joel.
So when I got cast, Neil was like joking around and he's like, you should probably beef up in order to play her. And I'm like, ha ha, yeah, it's mocap, whatever. And he goes, no, really, you should probably beef up to play her. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I should totally start deadlifting as much as possible. So I did. And I was training like crazy. And then I got pregnant. What are you going to do?
We need to separate her from Ellie. It shouldn't feel like I'm playing a reskinned Ellie, that Abby should, in many ways, look, behave, fight differently. So in gameplay, we've discussed, well, she needs to have different upgrade trees. It means we have to make the investment of capturing a whole different moveset for Abby. We can't just remap Ellie's animation onto Abby.
Holy fuck.
Abby has a fear of height, and there's stuff we're doing with the camera to make you feel vertigo. And that helps build empathy. It makes this character real.
We let you both live. And you wasted it.
She's aesthetically a very intriguing and iconic and powerful character.
Abby, who are these kids? They saved my life. Can you take a look at her?
Once she's killed Joel, what is Abby's motivation? What is she trying to achieve? Her redemption is really taking care of Yara and Lev, these two kids that are from a warring faction.
You know, she has been taught to hate them. There is an inherent xenophobic reaction to them. It's about saying, can you come to love your enemy?
Scars built all this?
Seraphites.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
These are kids that grew up in a very different context as Ellie, and, how they live their lives and experience the world is totally different.
Got your present. I'm getting really attached to Lev. He's been able to keep his head up despite losing so much himself in a world that is so harsh. We're taking too long.
Can't move any faster. We won't do your sister any good if we're both dead.
I really like his dynamic with Abby. Her having this, fucking brassy little sidekick who calls her on her shit in a way that nobody else can.
What's going on between you and your friend Owen? Oh my god, Lev, now? It seemed really awkward. Just go!
Who understands the sort of sense of being orphaned in the way that a lot of people can't.
How long have you two been on the run for?
2 days.
What the hell did you do?
I shaved my head.
They want to kill a little boy because he shaved his head.
I am not trans, so it's a very delicate thing to tell a story of an experience that I've not had. And that's something that we want to take seriously.
Did you hear what they called me?
Yeah.
Do you want to ask me about it?
Do you want me to ask you about it?
No.
Okay.
It's really about trying to create a multifaceted character who is trans, and that is absolutely an important part of who he is, but also a part of who he is, not the whole of who he is.
As far as the Paris cutscene, I'm pretty stressed out. We have 13 days, less than 2 weeks to finish this thing, and there are still some big ticket items. Lost Legacy turned out to be a much bigger project than we originally envisioned, but now that it's done, everyone is now on board.
We've got the Greenlight demo done.
She's putting on quite the show.
It's very real. We're in full production now, so I guess that's the short of it, is we're in full production now.
Hey everybody, PlayStation's live at Paris Games Week 2017. We've got a huge show for you starting now.
Wow, what a great way to open Paris Games Week. Let's have the first in-depth look at a much anticipated and exclusive title.
Last of Us 2. Last of Us 2. Please, please. Please be Last of Us 2.
Our fans, they want to know every last thing about what's going to be in this game.
Is this The Last of Us?
Neil has taken the way, he kind of creates an arc or like this sense of drama, this kind of sense of mystery or like dramatic tension, and crazily has brought it to marketing.
I view marketing as part of the game. It's very calculated what we put out there and how we want you to connect different marketing assets. When we first released the teaser trailer, too many people right off the bat said Joel is dead.
The blown out light really fucked us in a way I don't think any of us saw coming.
We actually underestimated our audience a little bit. They're so sophisticated now, so you have to get more sophisticated, like how am I still going to surprise players and viewers?
You start on characters you've never seen before in a world that like could be The Last of Us, could be anything. That creates like a really, really cool sense of tension.
At no point are we going to market that you play as this other character.
What is this? Yo, that looks good though.
I was so excited about working on it and I couldn't say anything. It was so rough.
Oh, is she gonna cut a baby out of her belly?
And then Uncharted 4, you find a comic book that shows Ellie's mom pregnant. So people already had theories that Last of Us Part 2 was going to have Ellie's mom. Oh, if we just kind of black out the letters, she has the same number of letters as Anna, Ellie's mom's name, we'll get people to think this is Ellie's mom.
Oh my god. Girl's got a good... That hammer's from the Outbreak poster.
So we had that poster with the forearm of a character you've never seen before, with this like kind of wolf's head in the background. What does that mean? Kind of like prompting this mystery.
You want people to feel like they've figured everything out and then have the story surprise them.
Man, if this is The Last of Us 2, bro, I'm gonna go crazy. Oh my god. Last of Us 2?
Yes! Yes! Yes, bitch! Yes! I fucking knew it!
Everything that we put out there is shaping expectation. And then the final game, hopefully, if we do our job right, should subvert those expectations in an interesting way. We knew we were pushing boundaries with that cinematic. We are making a violent game. We're not going to shy away from how violent it is. It is part of what we're trying to say. And I thought it was a great discussion initially about what is the appropriate level of violence. When is something so violent that it just turns you off, where you just don't want to experience it at all. I like that they were wrestling with those things. I didn't like some of the insinuations about the trailer being misogynistic towards the female characters.
I don't think this story ever glorifies violence against women. There's no bias towards women or men. It just so happens that the two protagonists of this story are female, and therefore that's what you're going to see the most of.
There has to be fail states in video games, which means a character has to be capable of being hurt. So does that mean that there can be no female protagonists in video games? Because that feels super sexist to me. And frankly, like, women are the victims of violence, and don't we want to see women fucking fight back once in a while?
That character, her hand getting hurt, it has consequences for hours of gameplay to come.
One article even like asked the question, were any women involved in the making of this? And it's like, yeah, the co-writer, the lead character designer, the lead character artist, all the actresses that worked on that scene.
I am so fucking... Here's what I hate about that article. I'm sorry. Do a modicum of fucking research, just a modicum of research, just like a little bit, before you put something out there to suggest that no woman could have worked on this because of the level of violence, because there was violence against women, because it is a video game, is so fucking sexist. I like watching graphic violence. Does that make me less female? Like, I like having a conversation about what power is. Does that make me less fucking female? I like working at a video game. I like playing video games. Does that make me less fucking female? Like, suck a dick. Don't put that in. I can't. I can't. Neil's gonna say put it in, but don't. I also don't represent all women, but I represent, like, I can represent this and say, I fucking wrote this. I wrote this. Like, I literally wrote the sentence, and then Yara eviscerates eviscerates his esophagus from his throat. I wrote that sentence. That is in the script, and I fucking stand by it. I'm afraid of being turned into a token rather than the truth, which is like, we're being thoughtful about the female narrative. These characters are more than just their vaginas. If you want to have a serious debate about feminism and feminism in video games and female depiction of violence, and you need to not see it as a binary conversation. It is an incredibly nuanced conversation. You cannot make blatant statements, and you cannot make presumptions. Fucking do your homework. I'm right here. I'm tweeting.
The tone of the violence in the game has always been important to portray as realistically as possible.
Our job outside of just drawing up concepts is really pushing our reference pipeline to make sure that the character artists are getting the most realistic examples of whatever they're working on. We can't find certain things, so we make the reference ourselves.
Simulating brain on wall.
1, 2, 3.
How does that drip fall down?
What does canvas look like when it's soaked in blood?
Ooh.
Splashing blood on them, dripping blood on them.
Nice. We put down some wet mud, pooled blood onto it to see how blood would react to a wet dirt surface.
So there's like little pieces of grass and like twigs and things that carry through, like there's actually movement following the edge.
One of the animators got a piece of lamb and we stuck it in Yara's shirt sleeve and hit it with a hammer.
Here we go.
Yeah, we have a break. She's gonna need to hold this as straight, because if she does this, it's gonna, you know, just the weight of it's gonna want to make it fold. So trying to keep it as straight as possible.
This past week's shoot was specific for the infected eating people's jugulars, and there was a concept that was done with like blood running down the mouth, but it's like, would that happen? Like, let's find out. I got on the ground and pretended to eat away at like a bloody soaked rag that we made. It produced some pretty surprising results because like most of my face got covered in blood.
Look up a little, John, but yeah. Teeth? People here will go to that length of trying to make sure that things feel as real as possible. Yeah, we do a lot of crazy stuff here. Nobody gets hurt, but it's really hard to see these characters that you spend so much time with and, for lack of a better word, kind of like, you know, birthing into existence, tortured and abused.
We're shooting the Joel death scene, which is like the catalyst to opening of the game. This scene has all of Abby's crew. It's a complicated scene because it's the most actors we've ever had in a single shot.
Y'all act like you're hurting us or something.
It's because they have.
Or Joel doesn't die.
Just me out.
Now that you got that.
Well, that's sorry, yeah. The minor line
So
change.
then what happens
Sorry.
is
Yeah,
all of us become friends.
Knowing what was going to happen and knowing how it was going to happen, I got very fearful.
There's so much weight to this scene. This scene has to be right. It's really difficult to reshoot it if we need to. Within the first game, having to call Troy and Hannah back to reshoot Sarah's death was very, very, very difficult for me.
The last time I tried to do a big emotional scene,
Don't do this. Please don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. Please, God, no. Oh, God, no.
that didn't go too well, and we had to reshoot it.
Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Come on.
How the hell am I going to play this? Like, how are we going to do this? I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I have the chops. Am I going to put Laura through this? Because I know how hard it's going to be on her.
Audio. Camera. Speak. Rolling.
Take one, Mark.
Action.
Joel Miller.
Who are you?
Guess.
Why don't you just get out whatever speech you rehearsed? Get this over with.
You don't get to rush this.
At the end, I really loved what he brought to it.
I couldn't wait to get back into Ellie's shoes again because it's where, weirdly, I feel most comfortable in a lot of ways because it feels like a character that feels the most like me that I've ever played, which is a little disturbing. I mean, minus like the murder and the killing.
So it's almost like a bit of a step forward, like you're about to like lunge and shoot.
Sweet.
The biggest change that has happened since initial pitch is Ellie is there when Joel is killed. It used to be she came across the body, and then she had to rely on Tommy's testimony of what happened. And we shifted it, which made it much more dramatic and intense for her. And I think puts more of it on screen and again, allows you better to understand why she needs to pursue these people.
The hardest part for me was looking over at Ashley.
No! No!
Knowing that Troy was gonna not be a part of it as much was really hard. And knowing that Joel was not gonna be in Ellie's life anymore, it was hard. So much of that day kind of feels like a blur because there were so many feelings involved in it.
What I had to do, I felt was very, very little. There's one reaction, and beyond that, we're on Ashley. There was no acting. There was pure, raw emotion. I'm staring in the face of that.
Joel! Why are you doing this? Get the fuck off me!
I'd lost a little bit of my voice. I couldn't scream like as loud as I wanted to, you know, to get that frustration and that sadness out.
Ashley was behind, crying, and God. And knowing Abby was taking this away from her was very difficult. And so I was crying when we were filming that scene. Yes.